Condi Alacrity Renegade just got buffed and is better than ever. Come on, see what all the fuss is about. At the launch of End of Dragons, Orders from Above, the skill that allowed Alacrity Renegade to function at all, got absolutely gutted. Its allied target cap was decreased from 10 players, an entire raid or strike group, all the way down to 5. This cleared the way for other Alacrity providers like Mechanist, Mirage, and Spectre. However, it became much harder to justify bringing Alacrity Renegade over any of these other classes. But this has all changed. With the February 14th balance patch, Orders from Above's Alacrity duration has been increased from a base duration of 1.5 seconds all the way up to 2 seconds. This may not sound like a lot, but this means that instead of needing at a bare minimum 78% boon duration so you can upkeep 100% Alacrity, now you only need 33%. This opens up way more gearing options and means that you can now swap out whatever rune you were using previously for the God tier Nightmare rune to seriously juice your DPS. So today we're going to be going through doing a breakdown of the entire build and showing you exactly how to play it. First up, we're going to touch on the traits. Up on the screen now we have the standard traits for the Condi Alacrity Renegade. I'll first go through it at a high level and then we can touch on some of the key traits that make the build function, as well as some situational alternatives. The Corruption line is just there to pump our condition damage. It lets us apply conditions on Legend Swap and increases the damage and duration of some of our key conditions. Invocation has some great damage modifiers, access to Fury and other boons, as well as letting us take the Charge Miss trait. This is very important later on. Renegade is obviously required, and it gives us access to Righteous Rebel in the Grandmaster slot. This trait makes the entire build function, and if you're not running it, you're griefing. The two most important traits for this build are Charge Miss and Righteous Rebel. Charge Miss gives you an extra 25 energy on Legend Swap, provided that you swap when you're below 10 energy. This gives you the extra energy you need so that you can slot in Orders from Above, and without this trait, you'll find yourself completely starved of energy, and the rotation will feel totally scuffed. Righteous Rebel will give you an extra 50% base Alacrity duration, as well as increasing the range in which you provide Alacrity around you. This drastically lowers the boon duration you need, and it means that your team does not need to be as tightly stacked on you to make sure that they get their Alacrity. For some minor trait variations, Spirit Boon in the Invocation line grants boons to you and your allies depending on which legend you swap to. However, if you find yourself lacking in Might, then you can swap it to Incense Response for some extra Might when you grant yourself Fury. This is very good for when you're running solo as well. Heart Piercer lets your short bow attacks pierce enemies and increase your bleeding damage. However, if your group doesn't have enough protection and is struggling to stay alive, you can take All for One instead. This will lop a chunk off your damage, so be aware. The main thing you want to do when selecting gear and food is that you need to hit at least 33% boon duration. This is so that you can theoretically upkeep 100% Alacrity for your group. However, it's a good idea to have slightly more boon duration, just so that you can build up a little bit of buffer for when you need to move off your group, if you mess up your rotation, or if you need to delay pressing Orders from Above for whatever reason. As a rule of thumb, the Nightmare rune is going to be your best choice, as you no longer need the extra boon duration from Traveler or Leadership runes like you needed previously. With this rune, we hit 40% boon duration with a Ritualist gear in every slot, except for a Viper's Headpiece. For food, you're going to want something that has condition damage main stat and expertise as the minor stat, so some variant of the cured meat flatbread if you're rocking ascended food, or plates of beef rendang if you don't have access to ascended food. For our utility, use Magnanimous Tuning Crystals. These grant you extra condition damage based on your vitality and toughness, and this works really well with the Ritualist gear that we're loaded up with. With this amount of Ritualist gear, you'll be sitting at around about 30k HP, which gives you an excellent safety cushion. We'll be rocking Sigil of Doom and Earth on our Mason Axe, and Sigil of Geomancy and Torment on our Shortbow. A really important mechanic to know about when playing Renegade, or Revenant for that matter, is that sigils that have effects that trigger when swapping weapons also trigger on Legend Swap. What this means is, if you perform your rotation correctly, you can actually trigger weapon swap sigils twice for each weapon. To do this, you need to first swap to your Legend. This will trigger the effect of the sigil on your currently equipped weapon. You then weapon swap and trigger the sigil on your new weapon set. The same thing happens again when you swap legends and weapons again, because the internal cooldown on the sigil effect will have expired. However, this doesn't happen when you swap weapons first and then swap legend. This is because you would have triggered your swap sigil by swapping weapons, have it on its internal cooldown, and then failed to trigger it on the weapon swap. due to it currently being on cooldown. So always, if you have weapon swap sigils on Revenant, try to swap legends first and then swap weapons. You'll see how this plays out when we get to the rotation part of the video. Now for the rotation. I've made an entire video focused on the rotation for Condition Renegade that does cover off on the Alacrity build as well. Because of the need to manage your energy to trigger Charge Miss, you want to be able to perform this rotation as fast as possible so your energy doesn't regenerate above the 10 energy threshold. This isn't an issue in Malix because your elite skill constantly chews through your energy, so it's quite easy to time your legend swap correctly here. It's a bit tougher when in Kala though, because your energy is constantly regenerating, and if you're a little too slow, you'll miss the Charge Miss swap. To get around this, I find it helpful to pop Heroic Command while in Kala, just to burn through that little bit of extra energy. It also provides some decent might, which is fantastic for an offensive support player. This gives you a little extra breathing room in the rotation and allows you to dodge and deal with mechanics much easier. Depending on the fight, there will be times when you'll end up with way too much energy and will need to spam several skills to get you back below 10 energy before swapping legends. You can do this by using your Kala Elite, your F2 to F4 skills, as well as any other weapon skills they happen to have off cooldown. You'll often have to adapt your rotation depending on the fight and what mechanics pop up for you to deal with. Just keep playing and it will all make sense eventually as you find out what works best for you. Some rules of thumb: always try and be in Mace Axe when in Kala and on Shortbow when in Malix. Now, on to the ideal DPS rotation. For our opener, we're going to start off in Kala. We're going to use Razor Claw's Rage. We'll use Axe 5 when we're at 29 energy, or just wait a little bit after casting Razor Claw. We'll use Mace 3, Orders from Above, and we'll swap to Malix. For the Malix loop, we'll first activate the Malix Elite, Mace 2, weapon swap. We'll use Shortbow 2, Shortbow 4, Shortbow 3, Shortbow 2 twice. We'll finish up with Shortbow 3, Shortbow 4, and then we'll swap back to Kala. Always try and fit in an auto attack between your various Shortbow skills. This will ensure that you'll get the extra powerful proc from your Elite Malix skill. Now for the Kala loop. We'll first use Shortbow 2, weapon swap. We'll use Mace 2, Mace 3, Citadel Bombardment, Axe 5. We'll use Mace 2 twice. We'll then use Razor Claw's Rage, Ice Razor's Ire, Mace 3, and then we'll swap back to Malix. Your Orders from Above cooldown won't always land in the same legend, so you'll need to adjust your rotation to suit, because you want to be using Orders from Above off cooldown. If you use Orders from Above during the Kala loop, just drop Ice Razor's Ire at the end of the loop. If you need to use it during Malix, cancel your Elite skill immediately after the third Shortbow 2. This will leave you with enough energy to quickly throw out Shortbow 3 and 4 before swapping legends. After the recent buffs, Condi Alacrity Renegade is one of the highest damage support classes with a ton of baked in utility and different ways to help out your team. Personally, I think Condi Renegade has one of the nicest and smoothest rotations to play with. This is because you get that sweet feedback of knowing that you nailed that Charge Miss legend swap. Give this build a crack, I really think you're going to like it. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and let me know in the comments below what other builds you'd like me to cover. Psst, I love all the Revenant builds.